This is a trigger warning. This video will mention rape, molestation, and child pornography. If you are sensitive to this, I advise you do not watch this. That is all.
There's pedophiles, right, who buy child pornography.
Mhm.
Would you say they should not be held responsible for doing that?
Yes.
Really? Even though they're directly supporting child rape?
Yeah, I think it's hypocritical. Because I bought my computer and the silicon in it was farmed in Africa by slaves. If I can do that and that's legal and no one's going to call me out on my shit, then yeah, I have to be consistent in that respect.
Okay, look, I think there's levels to this. So I wouldn't equate buying a computer to buying child pornography.
Okay, hello everyone, Miles98 here with a new video, and yes, I know, I am delaying the book review, and I have no excuse, but today I want to go over a clip that I saw yesterday on Instagram that I found problematic. The clip you have just seen at the beginning of the video is of well-known leftist YouTuber, Vaush, and now for context, that clip is old, as it was a debate between Vaush and another YouTuber named Vegan Games. This happened back in October of 2019. Now, I haven't watched the whole video, and to be honest, I don't plan on watching it. But there was something that Vaush said that should be critiqued and examined. Vaush is no stranger to controversy. He has been accused of transphobia. He has admitted to sexually harassing, Poppy and that whole drama thing, and a lack of understanding of leftist theory. So him saying something like this isn't really much of a surprise, especially if you consumed his content before like I have. So you should know that he has said some things before that are shocking in order to maintain consistency in his argument. He gets this from another YouTuber named Destiny. Now, keeping in mind that in a philosophical context, the argument he made is valid but not sound, and can easily be torn apart. Now, I am guessing around this point in the video, he and Gaines were talking about ethics of some sort. Vegan asked Vaush, does he believe that pedos that watch child porn, that consume child porn, should they not be held accountable? And Vaush says yes, and his reasoning for this is that since he owns a computer that uses exploitation of resources and labor to make it, he must remain consistent in his argument in order to not be hypocritical. Now, whilst the philosopher in me respects his consistency, the Marxist in me says this is utter bullshit and incomparable. Why is that? Well, for one, let's start with the obvious. Computers are a necessity to have in this world in order to survive. We need them to help keep in contact, to pay bills, for education, and so on. So buying a computer isn't bad despite the fact the system we have to buy one is used via slave labor. Now, pornography is not a necessity. It promotes a disproportionate sexualization of women. It's legalized rape due to it being used for transactions between two or more people that normally wouldn't have had sex, and it helps normalizing the degradation of women. Plus, child pornography is damaging to the child's psyche, as that is now online for others to see, which can lead to further issues such as stalking, bullying, harassment, or even kidnapping. Now, I know the argument of consuming it is not the same as participating in the physical abuse of the child, but without reporting it, you're helping letting these people get away with the abuse and helping the child to be victimized. Whilst it is not normalizing it, you are still saying, that sucks but I won't report it, which is basically, just letting them get away with it. Therefore, you act as an indirect accomplice by letting these people get away with it and letting that child continue to be abused. Therefore, you should be held accountable for not reporting it and just consuming it. So you should be held accountable for it. It's that simple. And yes, while slave labor steals the material resources such as the fruits of your labor and exploits you, it is not on the same level as being raped, molested, or tortured. But why does he make such a terrible hypothetical? Or better yet, why does he say these people should not be held accountable for their consumption? Well, let's get into that. Due to his arrogance of not wanting to be wrong, he tries to use the old saying, there is no ethical consumption under capitalism, which, needless to say, fails, and is a lazy argument. For one, whilst ethics under capital are almost non-existent, that does not mean we cannot still do virtuous things under capital, such as donations, organizing, volunteering, and community events. Consuming child pornography is something we don't have to do. We know it's bad because of the exploitation of the child who does not have the mental capacity to understand what is going on at that moment. Whilst yes, our superstructure is a force of exploitation, imperialism, racism, sexism, ableism, and so on, that does not mean we let things that are bad slide by in order to not be called a hypocrite. In this instance, it is better to be a hypocrite than letting someone be raped. Now, I must say that I know Vaush doesn't support the rape of children, and that if a pedophile was watching child pornography, he would help them, stop doing that. In this attempt to prove a point to vegan gains, he used a pathetic argument in order to come up on top. He sat there and thought about it, and answered that they, pedophiles, should not be held accountable for purchasing, downloading, or spreading child pornography, where children get raped, because it is somehow comparable to when we buy computers, game systems, phones, because of the exploitation that we steal material resources from slave labor in other foreign countries. This reminds me of something really, because, by the way, this isn't part of the script. This is off the cuff. Sexual exploitation is not the same as labor exploitation. There is no comparability. One is obviously worse than the other. Both are bad, but one is much more heinous. To compare it is laughable at best, and it shows the not understanding material conditions. But then again, Vaush is not a Marxist. For those of you that are questioning me, but what about my sex work? That's lumpen work. That's lumpen proletariat, which is not the same as regular proletariat. I suggest, read Marx, Engels. They talk about lumpen proletariat versus actual proletariat. Sex workers are at best petite bourgeois, given some of their circumstances. Some of them are lumpen because they are slaves to pimps, whilst, sex workers that are rich are petty bourgeois. And even then, I don't even think that's a proper term, because there is no means of production that is being owned. And no, reproductive systems does not count. That's not a means of production. Now, back on topic, another way to see his argument as pure and utter shit is by, let's see what my friend had to say. Quote, inherently neutral plus immorally produced is obvious morally different to inherent immoral plus immorally produced, end quote. Now, I know that's like a mouthful. No, we were on Instagram when we were talking, but I'm going to tell you what it means. So what he means is that what is produced, a product of material necessity that has been stolen from people in order to survive in the capitalist structure, is at best neutral, meaning that, if you need a phone because you need emergency to call someone, so on and so forth, no one's going to trouble you because you bought that phone. Yes, we know people had slaved their lives away to make it for you, because that's how capital works. Sometimes you have to participate in the game that you are forced to deal with. Now, what is already inherently immoral, rape, molestation, torture, and is immorally produced for the consumption of people that are basically mentally ill, is not the same as to what is neutral, because there is no necessity for it to survive in the capitalist structure. So his argument is just flimsy and abhorrent at best. There is no ethical way to consume a video of a child being raped, molested, or tortured. There is no fucking ethical way. It's unethical, it's immoral. There is no necessity of it. End of discussion. The fact that we are even talking about this is baffling. But then again, there are a lot of idiots out there. Now, the question begs, if there's little to no ethics in capitalism, why should we care about what people do? To you, I say, because if we don't, we let capital, liberalism, and individualism win. If we just sit idly by and not do what is beneficiary for the people based on Marxist ethics and dialectical/historical materialism, you let the system win by continuing their exploitation, their reactionary peddling of bourgeois information, basically helping them uphold the colonial mindset. You're also helping them having sexist mindsets and neurotypical mindsets, and letting, people that are marginalized suffer. This bullshit about being consistent in terms of what you believe is right or wrong isn't always a good thing, nor is it a bad thing all the time. There are instances where you have to abandon your ethics and beliefs for the good of the people. life is gray. With the material conditions we are given and to the dialectics of both that and history, we are sometimes forced to abandon what we believe in for either a short moment or forever. Listen, coming from someone that loves philosophy and will defend it to the death, there are times when even in philosophical debates, you must either accept defeat, change your position, or be fluid with your position, or all three. Vaush didn't do any of that, and helped perpetuate the idea that it is okay for sex offenders and pedophiles are not guilty or as guilty because it is somehow comparable to that of buying a resource which has been stolen by, basically through slave labor. And again, these two do not equate, no matter how you look at it. They just do not equate. Now, whilst that was a hypothetical, the idea itself does not exist within a vacuum and can give not terrible examples. It can leave the audience with a terrible idea of, what can and cannot happen under capital, and whether or not should they even be held accountable, or not it's good or bad, or is it even worth worrying about. It can affect people that are impressionable. But then again, what is to be expected from a man whom is proud for not reading theory, and complains about it when you bring it up to him, and is praised by a cult of his own fans? And yes, I know they fight each other, them fighting meaning Vaush and his fans, because they do clash, but his cult is still strong, and he still has a cult of personality. But, pride is his weakness, and that may end up being his downfall one day. I don't know. To be quite frank, I hope he does educate himself, because he has demonstrated that he does care for research, the truth of the matter, and he does seem smart. Now, I know a lot of people are going to disagree with me, saying like, yeah, no, he's not smart. But let's be honest, he is intelligent, but it's just that what's infuriating is he's not using his own intelligence to actually study, read, and it's just infuriating at best, because there is potential in him. It's just that he chooses to do nothing with it. Well, anyway, that's all for today. I'll try to get started on my script for my book review, but that will be a while. School is almost out. That is the good news, online classes and all that shit. And I will try to be more active, which, me saying that is jinxing myself, because procrastination is a bitch. Now, I might do one more video before my book review. I don't know. But, anyway, I hope you have a good day. Stay safe out there. Wash your hands. And don't inject yourself with disinfectant like that dumbass president of the United States said. Okay? Okay, that's not healthy. That's not healthy. You should know this. If you're watching this video, that means you have at least passed the first grade at least. And you know that injecting yourself with disinfectant is terrible. Okay. Anyway, this is Mouse98 signing off.